We all need textile recyclers to dispose of articles we can't sell and to generate income from those items. In this next session, All That Glistens Is Not Gold, we're going to hear from Alan Wheeler from Textile Recycling Association and Dawn Dungate from East London Textiles. And we're going to discover what happens to your unwanted stock and the social and environmental concerns that affect the industry and the price per kilo you may receive. I'm going to hand over now to Andrew and Dawn. Thank you. Oh, Alan, sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. It's all right. I can't say the word legislative either. So I guess I just kind of press this button here. Actually, what I'm first of all going to do is just give you a sort of an overview of what the Textile Recycling Association does and how we try to ensure that, if you use a TRA member, you're only dealing with legitimate businesses, because there's all kinds of practices. And then Dawn is going to go into a bit more detail about what happens when it comes to the clothing going into a sorting plant. So anyway, that's me. My name's Alan Wheeler. I'm director of the Textile Recycling Association. Who is the Textile Recycling Association? If you don't know, we are the only legitimate UK trade association for processors and collectors of used clothing and textiles. We have been around for a rather long time. I haven't been around since 1913, but the trade association has. And indeed, we did celebrate our 100th anniversary at the Houses of Parliament a few years ago, and that was jolly good fun. It's the only trade body, I think this is important to understand, that is operating in the area of fundraising through clothing collections that already has a robust membership entry requirement in place already. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that, what we currently do, but also I think equally interesting is what we are proposing to do. So we are committed to putting in more transparent standards into our membership, which will enable the likes of yourselves and local authorities and anyone else who's supplying used clothing, so that can include retailers and schools and so on and so forth. So it shows that you're able to exercise, or rather you're able to exercise more due diligence when selecting used clothing collectors. Got a couple of reasons I thought I'd just outline as to why I think it's a really good idea to work with TRA members. We already have the robust entry requirements in place, so we endeavour to ensure that only reputable organisations are admitted. I'll talk to you again a bit more about that. We offer protection for you against any potential breaches of the Environmental Protection Act of 1990 and the Waste Framework Directive, because as charity shops, you are a supplier of waste, and under those acts, you have certain obligations to make sure that you are dealing with businesses that are authorised to take and process your waste. We can, it's a very simple one, we can offer follow-up in if there's any slip-ups in our members' services. Sometimes you do get people saying, oh, they haven't come for a week or so, or they're a bit late with their payment. Now, if you come to me and I know, and they know that I know, then usually the matters are sorted out very quickly. So there is an advantage to it. We cover basically the whole of the mainland of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So I put John O'Groats to Land's End, and I couldn't think of any other two towns to scan the other way around, so I went Derry to Dover. So I hope that worked. And I was thinking, oh, I know the Protestants in Northern Ireland, they call it Londonderry. Will they be offended? But I thought, Derry sounds better. Derry to Dover. So there you go. Our members will pay you sustainable, competitive values. Risk to charity shops. We talked about the breach of the waste legislation. And as I say, under the Waste Framework Directive, even that's an EU directive, but even outside the EU, we will still be required to uphold this because EU law will be transposed into UK law, and obviously if people are exporting to EU countries. They will be required to uphold the Waste Framework Directive as well. It requires you to check that your merchant has the legal authority to take and process your waste. And I can assure you that charity shop grade clothing is classed as waste. There is no controversy about that. This is interesting. Last week, I got hold of a list of 24 businesses operating in the sector, most of them who I'd never heard of before. So they're collectors and processors of used clothing. There were 24 of them. I did a quick check on them, and 22 out of 24 of those were operating without the most basic legal requirements. So a waste carrier's licence, an environmental permit, which virtually nobody needs, but they do need an exemption from environmental permitting. So 22 out of 24 had none of those. And as far as I could make out, none of them were members of any reputable trade body at all. So, you know, it's like if they haven't got a mark on there, if they haven't got a logo, then you need to, you know, look at these people very carefully. This is something that you need to bear in mind going forward. Currently, as I mentioned, most people currently in the UK are able to operate a textile collection and sorting service under an exemption from environmental permitting. That's largely because the current limit at which you have to get a full permit is if you are collecting more than 156,000 tonnes of textile waste per year. Now, considering the whole industry collects about including charity shops, it collects about 650,000 tonnes, and our sector collects and processes 350,000 tonnes. You can see no one individual company gets anywhere near that limit. The Environment Agency have put forward a proposal, this is their recommendation, that that limit gets reduced to 100 tonnes a year. Now, that will basically mean even the smallest man in a van will require a full environmental permit, and that will have major costs if that comes through to fruition. I did check with DEFRA yesterday, and they advised me that they will be making a decision, hopefully on this summer, but there will be a 12-month lead-in period. But I also suspect that, because in previous communications they've said to me, would make a decision after Brexit. So they said this to me yesterday before they knew that Brexit date is going to be pushed back now until probably the end of October. So we might not get a decision on this, but it is something that they are looking at. And if it comes to fruition, it will mean that the regulations surrounding any used clothing collector will be ramped up considerably, and the costs associated with it will be as well. And there's a financial risk, and I can again talk to you a little bit more about this going forward, and reputational risk. So I guess one of the sort of reputational risks is, do you want to make sure that you are dealing with people who are operating legitimately? This is a story that broke last year. This example is from a door-to-door collector who actually did make an application to the Textile Recycling Association in 2017. Now, we put it through our testing procedures. We found that they were operating illegally on a number of issues, and just for that, we refused the application. We did not know, I have to say, that they were you know, potentially breaching the Modern Slavery Act, because I think if we did, we would have reported it to the authorities. But nevertheless, this time last year, that news broke. That particular story is on the BBC website. It was all over the sort of printed media and the broadcast media when it broke last year. This is another one. Now, I can't see it here, but I've faked out the, I blanked out the charity name to save any embarrassment. But again, this was a door-to-door collector, or door-to-door, yeah, a charity working with a door-to-door collector. This story broke in The Independent a couple of years ago. it was a case in Bristol, this particular lady working for this door-to-door collector was found guilty of trafficking people over from Eastern Europe. So these are people that are working with charities already. So those are door-to-door collections. I know that there are others that are working in the collection and sorting sector who will be getting your goods somehow, and they will be also breaching these. But it's very difficult to prove it. So, and I'm not going to mention any names here. Okay. So what do we do? I keep saying we've got robust entry requirements. One of the things to do is detailed checking a company's directors and history of known associates. I don't think any other organisation does that. We have a ban on all businesses who are known to establish Phoenix companies. I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. We do other detailed checks on potential breaches of law. And we have a code of practice that actually has teeth. It's not just one that sits there on our website. All our members are required to uphold it by law. It's publicly available on our website. And since we launched it, by law, by the rules of the association, it's on our website. And actually, since we introduced it in 2012, we have actually had to expel one member, and we've actually had to suspend another one for over a year for serious breaches that they had to rectify. So we do take it seriously. This is all again on our website. This is like the pre-qualification questionnaire, almost, if you like. This is what we ask our members, our would-be members rather, to submit before we even look at their membership application. And then again, we check for the reputational risk. And the director's check, I think, is important because actually, I've been thinking about it. There's currently even an ex-president and 2 former chairmen of the Textile Recycling Association who are now barred from making an application to rejoin the Textile Recycling Association, and not because of any other sinister reasons other than they went bankrupt for genuine reasons, I think, rather than the more sinister reasons that I'm going to sort of outline to you a bit later. But, we have to stick hard and fast to those rules. They haven't made applications, but I'm just saying if they did, they would be. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about Phoenix companies and what they are. A Phoenix company, this is, I've taken this from a definition from the internet, is a commercial entity which has emerged from the collapse of another through insolvency. And the new company is set up to trade in the same or similar trading activities as the former, and is able to present the appearance of business as usual to its customers, or in your case, I know technically your suppliers, but you're the customer in terms of you're getting a service from them. And this is happening to people, this is being done to charity shops. So I'm going to give you a real example, again with no names, but this actually happened. Company A was established about 5 years ago, and it rapidly gained a reputation in the charity retail sector and was soon servicing hundreds of charity shops. Now that company went bust in 2017. And now, if you were using this, you wouldn't really know about this because, well, I will explain a bit, but as you can see, if you go to the Companies House website and look at the original company, it left a claim of £2 million to be paid to HMRC. And it also left 6-figure debts to other non-charity creditors. But within days, Company B was established. There's a direct link between Company B and Company A. And in fact, Company B even operated from the same address. The Company B director was a former employee of Company A. I hope you're all following this. And then this new company then told all its charity partners, oh, it's business as usual. You don't need to worry. We'll continue servicing your shops, and we will just pay the bills as Company A did. But also then Company B ran into trouble. In fact, I know from experience, I know from actual phone calls earlier this year that a number of charity shops are saying this company is not collecting anymore. Oh, I forgot to say, still trading under the same name as Company A, but just dropping the word limited as well. So again, as far as you're concerned, it's the same company. And that Phoenix company got dissolved last week. And as yet, there's nothing on Company's House, but I suspect that something will arise from the flames of that company, and they will continue to operate charity shop collections. Thought I'd take this, though, from the Joint Administrator's final report. Now, I am going to read it out. I know it's wordy, but I think it's if you read it out, you take in what he's saying. We are continuing. So this is on the Company's House website. We are continuing to pursue a number of lines of inquiry into the affairs of the company and potential claims that may be present. We are not yet at liberty to furnish creditors with details of these inquiries due to the sensitive nature of the potential claims. What does that mean? And then it goes on to say, we are required to submit a confidential report to the Secretary of State to include any matters which have come to our attention during the course of our work, which may indicate that the conduct of any past or present director would make them unfit to be concerned with the management of a limited company. We can confirm that we have complied with our statutory obligations in this regard, but we are unable to comment on the content of our submission or any action being taken in relation to it. I have to question, why are they unable to comment? But anyway, I just wanted to make it clear, neither Company A or Company B were members of the TRA, and if the people behind them tried to establish a new company, they will never become members of the TRA, because we'll pick it out straight away. Now, having been negative, I'm probably overrunning. I'm going to get very... This is the really good news. This is something that we're working on, a really positive initiative with the likes of the Charity Retail Association, major charities like the British Heart Foundation, Oxfam, Salvation Army, Cancer Research, and Sue Ryder, Chartered Institute of Waste Management, the Local Authority Recycling Advisory Committee, and WISH, which is the Health, Safety and Health Forum. We're developing a brand new standard that we hope to launch or intend to launch in the autumn. That's the plan. It will apply to all collectors and sorters of clothing, be they from charity shop, textile bank, door-to-door, retail take-back, and so on. It's a two-stage process. It involves a pre-audit qualification questionnaire, which will be able to wean out any people who are obviously not going to be able to make the standard. And then once that's completed, the would-be applicants to the trust standard will be required to go through what's called a UCAS accredited, UK Accreditation Services, so a proper bona fide independent auditor will go to their premises and audit them against a series of different measures, looking at things like health and safety and employment records, and whether they're breaching the Modern Slavery Act, and environmental legislation, and so on and so forth. And that, as I say, will be launched in the autumn. And that's something I think is really exciting and really positive. I would really trust you to look, or ask you to look out for that. So there you go. I should just to show I should go on to the next slide. But that's all the kind of things that we're covering. So I would leave it up there for longer, but I know I've got to move on. So what are my key recommendations? Obvious for me, use a member of the TRA. Look out for the trust standard when it is launched, hopefully, as I say, in the autumn. Don't be lulled into a false sense of security. By that I mean go and use a TRA member. And also, other things, we cover the whole of the UK, or across the UK. We do undertake a much greater degree of due diligence than any other body in this particular area. I will defend that. Using our members can protect your reputation, and as I say, you'll get a sustainable price from our TRA members, and one that has been obtained without cutting costs illegally, such as what Company A tried to do. and Company B, no doubt. And that's me. So sorry, I'm going to move on, and then after Dawn, hopefully there's some time for questions. So.
Hello. I'm going to try and rattle through this as quickly as I can because I know you all want to go home, and I know that's the most important thing because I would do too. So I'm just going to talk a little bit from a used clothes merchant's perspective on what we do with rags. There are Easter eggs out there. I know you're getting a bit low now. Go for the sugar kick. It is recommended. Okay. So who am I? I'm Dawn Dungate. I'm the operations manager for East London Textiles. A bit of a jack of all trades. I've done a bit of everything. But really, in a snapshot, I've been a retail area manager. I've done logistics. I've got the HR. I've got the health and safety, which is why I tend to end up getting involved in everything. Okay? So that's me. If you've read the blogs, you've already got them out there somewhere. You've got my professional bit. I ain't going any further with that. I'm going to give you some quick headlines about East London Textiles, more about the fact that, so you know where I come from. There are merchants in the room. I can see at least 2, might be even 3 in here. We all pretty much do the same things depending on what type of merchant they are, but we were founded in 2005 by 2 directors. Still got the same 2 directors. You'll never see them at one of these things because they say it's my game. Okay, we've got over 50 years of experience in the industry. That's massive. You know, we've been there through different areas, but within there, we're one of the largest in the UK, and we offer a full collection and sorting service, which really makes us able to provide everything that you guys should need. I'm not going to go too deep into what our company does because I don't want to say that East London is who you should use and only use. But what I'm more interested in is making sure that you guys actually understand what happens to the rags. So that's just the headlines. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit between the types of merchants. There's 3 types of merchants as far as we're concerned. There's a collector. That'll be a person who just goes out and collects from your door, pays on the door, but then they have to sell it on, which is where their negative is. If the market's not quite right, they may struggle to sell it on, which can affect their cash flow. You've got your sorters. These are just people that are taking the rags from the collectors. The collectors will then sell it into them. They have no control of the volumes they can get. They will buy it at whatever price, which again will affect the collector as to what they can pay. And that's what we have to watch out for from a sorter's perspective. It's also the case that not all the sorters will be known to you guys. If you're using a collector, the sorter may not be following all of the things that they should be, which we'll cover a little bit further in a minute. And then you've got a sorter and collector combined. That's what ELT is. We go out, we collect it, we bring it back in, we sort it. We've got full control, full financial control over what we do. We're not reliant on any other business to manage what we do. So if we're saying that's the price we can pay, that's the price we can pay, and that's what it is. And we don't have to listen to what's going on outside as much as everybody else does. There is definite benefits to making sure you're working with a sorter as well as a collector combined than just one or the other, because they don't always have control, and control is really important, especially for you guys because it's about your reputation. So some of the things that collect from the shops, you'll see on your tables under the Easter eggs if you can unbury them. There's actually some examples of some of the flyers we actually put out to the shops, mainly to help with the volunteers. We think it's always good for you to have something to visualise with the volunteers, but more importantly for us is allowing us the opportunity to tell you what we can collect. And they're very basic details. Strange list of bric-a-brac. Any woman that says they're going to use some of the items, it's down there on the bottom there, it says new and used makeup, new and used face creams. For me, that's a bit weird, but we'll take them. We'll take them because there is a market for it abroad. And it's not the nicest things. I'm seeing Tracy's face going, what on earth is going on? But we do, and there is a market out there. But that's bric-a-brac. We're interested in textiles. Textiles is where you're going to make your money. Bric-a-brac's not where you're going to make your money, unfortunately. So it's more about those items, that side of the business that we need to work on. So what happens? This is what you guys will normally have seen. You'll see my lovely Andrew, who's going to kill me for lots of pictures of him, going into your stores, going and emptying your pens out, wheeling it out in his trolleys and loading it onto his vans. Question is, how many times is that item being touched? Take a simple T-shirt. is what I will always say. And think about how many times it's touched, because every time it's touched, there's a cost. You guys will have picked it up in the shop, sorted it, decided whether you're going to put it in the rag. Then we'll have collected it, we'll have loaded it, and we'll put it in the van. That's the first stage for us, but it's not the final stage for that particular piece of rag. What happens to it next? It'll come back to our sorting factory. This is our sorting factory in Essex. It'll get unloaded. I don't know whether that picture down the bottom's come out very well, but there's lots of different pens, because we have to do the first sort when we unload vans. We're bringing it back in and we're breaking everything down. So we're breaking it down to, is it the linen products that we're collecting and we're asking you to separate? Is it the heavy household items? Is it the used clothing? Or is it bric-a-brac, books, electricals, mobile phones, all the other bits and bobs that we collect from you guys? But it has to be broken down. That in itself is time-consuming and costly. And then it's moved before it goes into our site for storage. So again, been touched a couple more times. Okay, here we've got, again, this is when these bags are coming into our site. So we've actually got now here, I'm showing you as they're loading it onto the conveyor belt, and it's actually being touched. It's been touched by the loaders initially, and then everybody who's sorting it. And you've got some really cheesy grins coming up, I will say, because my staff thought this was hilarious when I was recording this. But each item could be touched 4 or 5 times on a conveyor belt. Every time it's touched, it's a cost. And we're just constantly touching these items, just in the sorting process. Then when it comes down from the initial sort, it's coming down to a finer grade sort. Now these ladies here, their arms move like amazing. I've never seen anything like it. And they're working so quickly because they're trying to sort all the different products. A bag of T-shirts or a sort of T-shirts can come up to something like 25 different products. Is it a strappy top? Is it a long sleeve, short sleeve, ladies, small, large, men's, females? Got a nice stain down it, whatever it might be. All of these things get sorted and separated out. So they're sorted by my girls on the stations, and then it's checked by a quality controller. Another 2 times it's been touched. Then it comes and it goes into the baling machine, so you've got the lads actually having to load it up onto the baling machine. If you've never seen one of these, it does run on, so I'm not, because we're very short on time, I'm not going to leave it to run. But what they're doing is they're going to generate these bales. If you ever want to see how this works, get in contact with me. I'll quite happily send you some of these videos, no problem at all. Then it goes back into storage while we make sure we've got enough stock, which you can see there, that's about 3 days worth of stock for us. That's ready to go out and going to be sold on before it's loaded on the container. So it's again been touched by forklift drivers, which keep touching these goods over and over and over again, and every time there is a cost. And these costs have to be taken into account as to what we can pay. So, how many times have we touched it? Now, I've gone for the bare minimum. I don't know about you how many times you're going to touch it in a shop. I have an idea, but it depends on whether it actually goes straight into rag, goes on the shelf once, gets moved to another shop, gets rotated, moved around a couple of times. How many times have you guys touched it? Basically, the basic sort for us, an item will be touched 15 plus times. That's 15 different people, 15 dots of a second or two. It all adds up to the costs. And with the way the minimum wage is currently, was it £8.21 now as of 1st of April, and it's creeping and creeping and creeping, it's getting very expensive to do. So, what happens to the goods once we've touched it and we've sorted it? They're loaded onto a container, goes onto a nice pretty sheet. I've never seen a ship that looks that clean and tidy. I'm going to say this. So it's obviously a nice picture I've pulled down off the internet, before it then goes on to be sold in markets across the world. The markets across the world will vary as to what they do. In Eastern Europe, they tend to use the winter clothing, the heavier weight goods, so your jumpers, your jackets. That's what we're sending out there, and that's all about making sure that they've got the winter stuff, because it does get a little bit cold in Ukraine and areas around there. Then you've got Pakistan. They take the poorer quality goods, the items that you think there's nobody can ever use again. They're going to take those and they rework them. That means they're going to repair them, they're going to wash them, they're going to keep them up and running and put another life on them as much as possible. And then the key areas that most of you guys will know about will be the African markets. And those are the guys that will be taking them on. When you see documentaries of the slums in some African country and they're wearing a Nike T-shirt, it's going to have come from a merchant like myself, somewhere along the lines. and they'll have only paid a very small value for it, which is why they can afford to wear that Nike T-shirt or the Reebok T-shirt. It's not actually, they've not paid the full value like we would have to for a Nike top. So, the environmental impact of not sorting in the UK. We always promote, or I will always promote, a sorter, okay? And I think, you know, there's a couple of merchants in here would agree with me. A sorter have more control. But it's more important about, for you guys, you need to know where those goods are going, what's happening. Your reputation is at risk. Is one of your labels going to get left in a top, in a garment, that's then sent off and not being sorted in a fair practice? Where is it being transported abroad? It's actually illegal to transfer a bag of original rags straight out of the country because it's deemed as waste, which is the most ridiculous thing in the world because we're paying you for it, it's good quality goods, but it's actually waste. If I pick it up from the back of your shop and carry it out to my van, that's waste. So it cannot then be put onto a container and sent abroad because you don't know whether it's contaminated. And contamination can be as simple as a coat hanger. That is classed as contamination. Can you guarantee where it's going to, if it is going abroad, isn't using slavery, unfair practices, no health and safety, you know, all of those items, things that you need to think about, you do need to think about more. So it's most important that you are looking at this. And the waste regulation, that just goes on and on and on, because they will look at whose goods are in those containers if they do stop them and catch them abroad. And it will come back to you and say, why have you let your goods go that direction if you've got multiple tickets? So, question is, do you know exactly where your textiles from your shops are being sorted? And where is the collector taking those goods? Are they taking them to a UK sorter, which is great, as long as they're registered, or are they just taking them out of the country? Find out. Any reputable merchant will happily tell you, show you round. Some of you have been to our site over in Romford. I'll always promote anybody who wants to come and see what we do. Come and get us, have a look. I'm quite happy. So the real gold. I've got a lovely bag of rags, okay? My nice paired shoes, we don't like single shoes because there's no money in them. But there's different types. There's used clothing, there's linen, there's heavy household. We want it broken down. We need to break it down. Why do we need to break it down? Is there a benefit to you as a shop? Benefit to you as a shop is none. You breaking it down doesn't give you a benefit, but it does affect the price we pay because it comes back to that very first sort. If I can break it down, I'm reducing the number of times it's being handled. The fewer times I handle it, the less money it's costing me to sort it. And that's what we need to make sure we're doing as best we can. Shop managers, tricks and trades. I am just going to really... These are some of the things we found in bags. My favourite thing that we find in bags are bricks. Oh, shock faces, don't be shocked. You'd be amazed what shop managers will do. They will put bricks, wrap them up in a jacket or something so it's padded in the middle of a bag to increase the weight. Really, really sneaky. All we want is the shops to play fair, okay? This is a tough market. You know, it's not just bricks. You get books inside as well because books tend to be heavier. You name it, we get it, we see it. There are other items that we get coming in. I did try finding something not that vibrates that I could show you to try and tease you, but we do get those things that do come in. It's not nice. It's not, but you've got to get rid of it. We'll have to get rid of it. It's one of those things. But we don't want your KFC and your rubbish packets. So it's all about the area managers and the managers actually working with the volunteers to try and make sure. So it's what is found in a bag of rags, and you'd be amazed. So what drives the price? You get paid for your textiles. Most important thing for us as merchants is the current market in Africa. That plays a big part for us. It has an impact on the value of the pound. All of these things in Africa, political unrest. Political unrest in the UK at the moment is not really helping us, but normally we have to worry about Africa. That's the key areas where we have to worry about. All of these things will affect us as merchants and what we can sell your goods on for once we've sorted it, once we've touched it loads of times, we've got it looking nice and beautiful again because it's just T-shirts, then that's one of the things we have to take into account. The volume of the textiles on the market, that will affect it. We all know January is silly season and August can be a little bit of a silly season, but the slums in between can affect it because if there's not enough rag on the market, there becomes a demand. Demand changes the price, but on the reverse, if there's too much, it drops the price. So we've got all of those things that we have to take into account. Yeah, my favourite, the collectors who sell it abroad. They're selling it to people who don't use health and safety legislation, modern slavery, all the rest of things, because their overheads aren't as high. My overheads and somebody down the road who's using illegals, completely different. So that does affect the price we pay. And we've got the quality of the goods. Are the shops paying fair? One of the things I would always say is we always check the quality of our goods that we collect from shops, because shops will go to cash for clothes and try and sell the good stuff to a cash to clothes shop and then just give us all the rubbish. That's not playing fair. And we have had an area of a very large chain of charities, not a hospice, where we've actually refused to collect from an area because we caught them doing this and they were making a tidy amount. And it wasn't they were putting the money back in the till. That was the negative, unfortunately. This particular chain, the area manager was in on it, the manager was in it, and the money was going elsewhere. So, that's me. I've rattled through it. I apologise if I've run over slightly, but I've tried to rattle through as quick as I can. Thank you for listening. If you've got any questions, you want to know anything, please speak to me or speak to your merchant, and they will give you as much information. Or alternatively, contact Alan at the TRA. He'll be able to point you in the direction of somewhere. And if you've got any questions, we'll be here just after, and we can run because I know you want to finish up and jump out the way. Thank you very much for listening.